Hi, my name is Andy. I'm with a company called Building Knowledge Canada. I'll give you a little bit of a background. The company was formed about 30 years ago by Gord Cook, a business partner now. We work with about probably 110 builders and renovators across Canada. We sit on various code committees. I was operations manager for one of Canada's largest privately owned home builders for about 12 years. And we have the privilege of seeing the good, the bad, and occasionally the ugly. Currently, Gord and I both have been part of some of the code committees coming into Ontario and the National Building Code. And I think there's some things that we're going to talk about today that there's some real opportunities, or you can have the hedgehog effect where you go, it ain't ever going to happen, and sort of dig your hole and pretend it's not going to. So to start out with, we'll skip that. This is what our future looks like, folks. Right down in the corner, you have this thing called the 2012 Ontario Building Code. That's also where the National Building Code of Canada stands for all the other residential boards across the nation. What's interesting about that is that was the first time in the history of our province and nation that houses actually had to meet a minimum energy efficiency level. We never had it before. The only reason we had insulation on walls is because we had to keep the walls warm and the pipes couldn't freeze. So once you start to benchmark something, it grows. Guess what's happening January 1st, 2017? We're about 10 months away, 11 months away. Our building code is going to jump by 15%, and it's going to land right where Energy Star is. Okay, let me give you an idea what this means. It means that the houses we've been building for the last 5 years are more efficient than the R2000 homes that were built in 2008 and 2009. So this is how fast it's going. We have programs like Energy Star for new homes. I think it needs to be noted some of the clients we work with, Mattamy, Minto, Reed's Heritage locally, 33% of the building starts last year in Ontario were Energy Star certified. What's happening is they're starting to close in on this funny little thing as you go up the scale called net zero ready. What net zero ready and net zero homes are is they're homes that produce as much energy as they use. The city of Oakville has already put a community energy plan in place that says by before 2020, every single home that comes in for building permit when it comes across the desk has to be net zero ready. The largest builder in Edmonton, Alberta, Landmark Homes, 1,300 units a year. By the middle of this year, every home coming out of their plant will be net zero ready. So things are happening incredibly fast. So where does this take windows? We'll keep looking at this. The new building code that you can expect in about a week and a half from our ministry here in Ontario will have some new prescriptive packages. One of the things you're going to see, and this is going to affect you with windows, is that 90% of the packages are going to require that walls have some sort of insulation on the outside. So jamb thicknesses, threshold thicknesses, flashing details. There is now in the building code going to be recognition on the prescriptive side of windows with a 1.4 U value. That's called a triple glazed window. Okay? There is going to be recognition in the building code as well, because what happens with really energy efficient homes and tight homes that are built to code is that when you put high solar glass in a house like that, you get overheating in the middle of January. Okay? And people get uncomfortable. So the building code is making allowance for you to use low solar glass on certain orientations. The other thing too that's happening is that for existing homes, the SB 12 will also speak to renovations on homes over a certain size. So these same things are going to apply in the world of renovations. The other thing too that I think you can get ready to expect is likely the federal government over the next year is going to release probably one of the largest eco-energy programs we've ever seen in the history of Canada. And I think there's probably some of you that have put some windows in some homes and buildings based on the last eco-energy program, if I have that right. The other thing too we need to be aware of is the HERD. It stands for Home Energy Rating Disclosure Act. Right now it's sitting with the province. It's passed more than multiple readings. It's scheduled to be released in the 2017 reg with a proposed start date of 2019. What this act does is it requires any home, existing home, before it can be sold, has to have an energy evaluation done so that the purchaser understands how much they will be paying for utilities on the home. So again, our world is changing. Here's some sort of cool things. 33% of new homes, like I said, in Ontario that were built this last year were built to Energy Star standards. We have a new Energy Star version that's going to come in a couple months. So a lot of those builders will be upping the ante. A lot of those builders, to meet the new Energy Star standards, are likely going to have to be using triple glaze windows. Okay, they're already on the border right now. Now let's talk about net zero. It's something you'll want to sort of acquaint yourself with because it's something you're going to hear more about. I chair the National Net Zero Council for the Canadian Home Builders, and we're developing a labeling program for new and existing homes that a home can be given a label as a net zero home. These are builders, some of the names you're going to recognize, that are actually building full communities in Ontario, Alberta, some down east, Manitoba, BC, full communities of net zero homes already at this point. Reed's Heritage Homes has said that by the end of this year, any new developments that they bring homes into will be net zero ready. Just want to show you this. Stateside, the same thing's happening. The building codes are actually going up. Their new 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, I'm not so sure why they call their code the International Code. It's a bit of an ethnocentric thing in the US, but anyways. What happens there is in 2015, it's mandatory that all new homes actually have to have air tightness testing before they can be closed. Okay? And again, they're getting closer to net zero. So let's look at this real quick. Working with a number of builders across Ontario and Canada, here's what we're seeing at the national level. We're seeing that before the year 2000, we had window-to-wall ratios of about 8 to 10%. We had houses that had a little bit of glass in it, but not too much. 2010 to 2016, we saw the window-to-wall ratio go to 12 to 16%. We have probably about 750 new different various projects coming across our desk and other evaluators across Canada, and what we're seeing right now is window-to-wall ratios of 17 to 25%. You guys are getting business from the insulation guys, which is good. So lots of opportunity. Couple things here though on the window side. So how do you make the business case for this as the energy efficiency goes up? So I want to give you a little bit of a case study. As a builder and eventually as a renovator, you're going to have to make the house a little bit more energy efficient. So what are your options? Well, let's do a quick study. Let's take a house that's about 2 stories, it's about 1,800 square feet, has a window-to-wall ratio of about 12 to 13%. The 2x6 wall with an R22 bat with triple glazed windows makes the overall efficiency of the house better than doing an R20 2x6 wall with 1 inch of foam on it. The overall efficiency of the house goes up more when you put triples in that house than it does putting 1 inch of foam. So let's dive a little deeper into this. One thing about putting triple glazed windows in instead of 1 inch of foam means your foundation doesn't get as thick. That's cool. The next thing is there's really no learning curve for the framers and the trades. We do a lot of training for some of the locals and framing crews about how to put foam on a wall, and it's a huge issue for them. The next thing is for the homeowner, when you have low U values like that, one of the number one comfort calls as builders that we get from homeowners, even though we know it's a matter that we have to spend a half hour explaining it to them, is when you put triples in, you decrease the condensation risk. It means the homeowner can actually keep the house at a decent relative humidity in the winter time of about 25 to 30, and you don't get the calls as a builder or renovator. The other thing too that we're starting to see, we do a lot of mechanical design, is that if you choose the right glazing on some of these windows, you can significantly decrease the tonnage on the air conditioner. A half a ton on a typical 14.5 SEER air conditioner is worth about $400. We've seen with the right glazing, low solar glass on our own home that we built last year, drop the cooling load by a ton. I saved $900 on the cost of my air source heat pump and air conditioner because I put in right solar glass, low solar glass. The other thing too for the homeowner is $200 a year in reduced operating expenses across the year with that same glass. A couple other things we're learning is from the building science area is start to really understand your numbers. U values and solar heat gain coefficients are more important than the ER number. Now I'm going to walk you through this real quick. The ER value is a combination of a number of things. It takes into account the good heat that comes in through the sun that heats the house in the wintertime and offsets the heating cost. It also includes U value, it includes some air tightness metrics. Originally, the ER value was meant to be suitable for low-rise residential with possibly a window-to-wall ratio up to 12 to 15%, but not over. And the reason is because in new energy-efficient homes with a lot of glass, if you base your energy ratings on the ER, you run the risk of cooking the occupants. Give you an idea, we had a house of about 30 years old. The homeowner had the house, put a new air conditioner in. This is in the Quebec area. Air conditioner ran for 4 years, kept them cool in the summertime, some of the hottest summer temperatures we ever had. They were sold windows from a window manufacturer that were called warm glass windows. And they were sold on the pretense that these windows would keep them incredibly warm in the winter. What they were sold were a high solar glass window. The first year they had their brand new windows in their home, their air conditioner was all of a sudden undersized by over a ton. Okay? So again, know your numbers. Again, high solar glass also conflicts with air conditioning loads and so on. The other thing too you need to be aware of is in Ontario and across Canada, every home is required to have a mechanical heat loss and heat gain design done. And for the first time, beginning last year, mechanical designers had to know the exact solar heat gain coefficient of the window, and they had to know the exact U value because now they have to put it into their calculations. And it's throwing a lot of designs off. But for you folks, it's a tremendous opportunity to talk to clients, to talk to contractors about right-sizing systems and putting the money into better glass. One thing that has happened with these building codes going up, and for those of you that have been in the business for years, we know that as you put more insulation in a house and you make it more airtight, you get to what we call the building science tipping point. We're more at risk with more airtight homes, higher insulation levels, advanced insulation levels. We're at more risk of things, comfort risk, wetting risks, and indoor air quality risks. That little picture down in the corner is this thing called house as a system. How many of you have gone through training in what's called house as a system? Okay, a couple hands. That concept was actually coined by the Canadian IRC. It was coined by Canadian engineers and scientists nearly 40 years ago. And it's been sold across the world through programs like R2000 and Energy Star in the US, but it was a Canadian principle that if you do one thing in a house, it affects other things. How many of you remember the CHIP program, Canadian Housing Improvement Program? Government, oil embargo, paid people to go out and put more insulation into the walls, so we did. We went out and we put more insulation into the walls, and what happened? You got wet. Because we learned that if you're going to insulate something, you better make sure it's airtight. So guess what the next program was? Airtightness. What happened when we made the houses airtight? They got sick. We had backdrafting hot water heaters or flame rollout. There was actually people that lost their lives because of CO2 poisoning. Guess what the next program was? Ventilation. House as a system. Okay? One thing affects another. We do know better. Thicker walls, more insulation, airtight homes, you're at risk both of issues in the wall because of air leaks if it's not airtight, and the other picture is what happens when you put a window in a wall that's very well insulated and there is no flashing. Full flashing and water management of the windows, it's no longer, and I can tell you I'm as guilty as any other builder and renovator on the planet. Why do we have to put sub-sill flashing in? When we didn't have any insulation in the walls, it got wet and it might have dried out. The problem is when you have lots of insulation in the wall gets wet and it doesn't dry out. So what might have been a matter of if we put sub-sill flashing in and good header flash is now, it's only a matter of when. And it's either going to be the codes that'll drive it to us because of 80% of the litigation going on, or we're going to learn ourselves. Now couple things I want to put on your agenda before I end. So, understand number one, house is a system. One thing affects another. Get to know who's talking about net zero because they're going to be some of your best clients. The other thing too is keep your eye on the codes. The next week and a half, you're going to see the new Ontario Building Code come out for residential. You're also going to see the new commercial code for Part 3 and 10 coming out probably early summer, and you're going to see the National Building Code of Canada as well change. There's new updates for volunteer programs, R2000, Energy Star, Passive House, Net Zero. They're all going to be changing sometime this year. Triples are coming, and they are coming fast. All of the net zero communities that our clients are building have triple glazed windows in them. Know your numbers and know the difference. Water management is risk management. Every business is interested in making sure that they are not putting the history and the future of their company at risk, and one of the best ways we can do it is to know that we have to manage the water. The other thing too, know that windows are getting thicker. Start looking at your window profiles. And the last one, I had to put this in, get to know your local energy rater, because they can keep you up to speed on this kind of thing. Anyways, thank you, and it's been a privilege to work with the Strasburger folks too. Quite a company. Very good.